Astute is a digital company. We are a platform for the financial services industry. We're also owned by the financial services industry, and we're really responsible for the exchange of data between the banks, insurers, and investment firms, with a primary focus of ensuring proper financial planning, and with that also fraud prevention throughout the industry.
SilverBridge is a technology company. We primarily focused in the life insurance space, and that's been our expertise for the last 25 years. In recent years, we've branched out into other financial services like banking. We're very, very strong technically, but we've always had a focus on the administration side of insurance. Nowadays, there's far more application and need for digitization, modernization of systems, and also process automation. And those are the key focuses that we have within the industry at the moment. SilverBridge actually approached Astute because we saw the potential to do something very interesting with you guys.
Yeah.
In the past, we had interacted with Astute via insurance companies, and we hadn't had, it was really an arm's length relationship. But we understood that the data that you guys are holding and the mechanism that you are working with to give metrics to insurers that really sort of expose very, very valuable insights into their customer base, into their policies. We thought we could do something interesting together.
Right. We were quite excited about the partnership, specifically around how SilverBridge handles the data, the respect that you look at the data with, and then being able to now put that algorithm on top of the data to make sense of it.
Yeah.
So the first point being not that the machine learning is only, or the algorithm is only as good as the data that it's looking at. That data means nothing if you don't have an algorithm making sense of it. And that data needs to be made sense of and then pushed forward practically and operationalized so that we have a decision. And that decision can, on the one side, mitigate risk for the company, and on the other side, produce a really good client experience for your honest claimant.
For me, the data that you guys bring to the table is enormous. I mean, I don't think people understand how much data that you guys actually have. But to make sense of that data is incredibly difficult. If you put the raw data in front of somebody that needs to assess a claim, their mind spins because they've got so many parameters that they need to consider. To add the machine learning or the AI component on top to help that decisioning really sort of brings the best of both worlds, brings the richest form of curated data, and it also brings then the absolute expertise of the best people in that insurance company to make the decisions on top of that data. So I love the solution that's coming together at the moment.
Looking at the triangulation of data is really where we see our confidence intervals increasing to be able to really make accurate decisions. And when we start bringing data across the industry, across from funeral and investments and insurance, and bringing this data together from banking, from our regulatory authorities, bringing that data together and then starting to put these dots down and start triangulating that data, our confidence when we're making a decision is so much higher. And to our clients at the end of the day, for them to say, yes, do we go forward in interacting with this client? Are we under anti-money laundering? Are we correct there? Are we within the realms of POPI? And how do I then service my client well under a very increasing competitive ecosystem where each company is trying to pay faster, and yet the risk and fraud is rising? So how do you meet that both? And I think that's where the solution comes together very well.
There's a real positive spin to putting our two organizations together because the experience that the end customer gets is going to be amazing. The claimants that are genuine, fair claimants are going to get very positive, quick outcomes. And the people that should be investigated further are going to be investigated. don't treat everybody like a criminal in the industry, which is typically how these things get managed at the moment.
Some of our clients are able to pay out within 4 hours, if not immediate, because we have this confidence in terms of the triangulation of data. Great client experience. In a time where they are going through grief, there's a bit of hope and a bit of light saying, this policy that I've paid diligently, that my father paid or my mother paid diligently over the years, is now coming out and at least assisting in that time of grief. So you have this pressure to pay out sooner. How do you mitigate your fraud? Because they know, right? So we've seen the syndicates, we see it in the data. As soon as these financial services company puts in parameters, they very quickly learn these parameters and then submit just under that. So how do you have that client experience with mitigating your fraud?
Yeah, and I think that's why we've put the solution together, because if you can take the richness of the data and immediately make it available to an expert assessor, in 90+% cases, they're going to be able to make a positive or a negative decision immediately.
Again, if we're talking about that honest participant, citizen in the ecosystem, they paying for the fraud.
Yes.
If just by pure quick math, if you have an insurance company turning a profit and paying out fraudulent claims, someone's paying for that fraud, and that unfortunately is the honest claimant or the honest member of that fund. And that for me is very important, because we're paying inordinately high insurance rates in the country, and that's purely because of the fraud. And if we can get that out of the ecosystem, and there's been amazing work done by Ernst & Young in this, that says that the only way to combat financial crime is through industry collaboration. And we've put that on the table with many of the companies, and seeing them really come to the party and saying that they want to be able to participate in this ecosystem so that together they can combat this.
I mean, the Astute story is an amazing story of collaboration.
True.
But you need to get the big insurers to come together and in that first instance. Why is it not happening in the rest of Africa? My experience with insurance companies in the rest of Africa is that they are more willing to collaborate with each other to get insurance penetration to a higher level, but they don't have platforms like Astute. They don't have the mechanisms, and there must be opportunity for us to think about that in the future.
Right. And I think, to answer your question, that was at the core, is to say what we're bringing to the table is trust. And if we can have that trust mechanism, and that's supported by a whole lot of firewalls and a whole lot of integrity and foundations to make sure that that is indeed in place, we're able to facilitate these types of conversations. Now, this is an amazing concept, because we're looking at, you were talking now about the automation of these processes. They're still in largely very linear. So I have a start, and there's some things that happen within this process, and at some point I have a decision, yes or no. What the data does in real time, feeding into the system, is it makes this linear process react and act like a system, which is fundamentally different.
Yes.
Where I had static parameters, if a claim is under X amount, if policy is older than Y, pay out. Very static and able to be learned by the fraudster. We're going into a world of a dynamic decision-making based off real-time data that's happening in the ecosystem right now. So if fraud has happened, or multiple claims have happened on that bank account, we have the ability to show that next company. And that is a beautiful system that only works with industry collaboration. So in real time, you're able to see what's happening in the ecosystem. Again, positive experience for your honest claimant, where if someone is causing a bit of trouble in the industry, you have the ability to see that very, very quickly. So linear system acting in a systemic way, it's really brilliant, and that excites me.
Now I think there's very few organizations in the country that have access to the type of data that you guys do, but from so many disparate sources, the analytical sort of capabilities that you guys have to work that data and to start making, proactive predictions as to where the syndication is moving, or to help insurers understand potentially even how to develop product in the future to make the product a little bit safer, or to watch out for specific things that we understand are likely to start occurring if they structure their benefits in a particular way, or they, the way that they allow beneficiaries to be changed or something like that.
Patrick, that really sits at the core of our partner strategy. We understand that we are, as a core competence, really good at being able to bring this data in, make it secure, make it compliant. But from that point going forward, there's a lot of nuance in terms of how the bank step 3 is the insurance step 4, and they do it in different ways. And I think that's where SilverBridge adds significant value, because we're bringing this data together, but then actually practically putting it into the operations of a company, being able to get them through that process with the best decision at the end. That is exactly at the heart of our partnership strategy.
Yeah. So, Charles, for me, complex environments like the insurance industry and specifically the larger organizations, they've dealing with multitudes of projects.
Correct.
Multitudes of siloed departments with different budgets, and to get priority can sometimes be a challenge. I mean, you and I are sitting there and saying this is an incredibly valuable solution that makes absolute sense for an organization to take. We don't understand what the other projects are that they are involved in. Now, to elevate ourselves up within that prioritization means that, from your perspective, the confidence level of the fraudulent behavior or the suspicious activity needs to demonstrate clear bottom line value to them, that there's claims they're not going to pay out. From our perspective, we need to focus more on the efficiency side of things. We need to say to them, you can do more with less and create a brilliant customer experience. In total, the value that this collaboration will bring to you is enormous. And that will help you prioritize that activity.
Patrick, you're 100% right, and I think hence the partnership strategy. We sit in those presentations and we're able to show on their own data the value in rands and cents.
Yes.
And we get very excited, and so do they. And I think we believe in our product, but the fact that they believe in it and say this is brilliant, and we can actually see this isn't a PowerPoint presentation. You've shown on our own data deep analytics with a very high confidence level. Here's the bottom line. Here's the return on investment. This is the value back into my business. Here's the value to my end consumer. Yet we still see a delay in terms of getting that right down into someone calling in for a claim and having that experience.
Yes.
And I think that, for me, is where the value of the partnership comes in, is the ability not to rely on the institution's internal resources, project planning, prioritization, as we know with a lot of empathy that they are under a lot of pressure, where we can come in and add that value without them having to do any additional work, deprioritize any project, where we're able to come in and show immediate value as we start implementing this into their onboarding processes, claims processes, really throughout that entire customer journey, being able to add those specific value.
If you can take an external collaboration and consume it easily, and that's what we are proposing with this solution, is that there is a light touch within the organization. There's very little resource requirement from their side. The solution is already pre-integrated, so there's only a little piece of work that needs to be done. It's incremental, as you say. From first deployment, it starts to add value into the organization. So the ROI calc should be very straightforward, because it starts to release value from day one of implementation. A modern 21st century sort of business process where everybody touts digitalization, but they still ask people to fill out paper forms. We can take those processes and go upstream and downstream using our solution. So we can start to digitize the process all the way back, create proper digital channels.
Yeah.
You can eliminate the paper out of the process. The organization is able to take their individuals and they're able to repurpose them to provide better customer experience, to provide better insight into the product or what's working, what's not working, to be able to focus more on that forensics investigation that we keep talking about, because that's costly, it's resource intensive. The efficiency side is very exciting for me. The risk mitigation should be a no-brainer. I mean, if you can prevent paying out fraudulent claims and you actually have access to all the data, why don't you?
Now the acceleration we're talking about is it's already done.
Yes.
Astute is integrated into SilverBridge. So all of that complexity, the end client wins with the work that we've done, the investments that we've made to already build those integration layers. It's now just for them to consume into your business process rather than a deep technical integration. And I think that in itself is a great accelerator. The economies of scale on that, the end client benefits of greatly. And I think that is really a big part of the value that I think the partnership will bring to the financial service providers.
That's the need that these big enterprises have. They want the whole solution brought to the table.
Correct.
Rather than having to source individual bits and pieces.
The whole solution yet customized to their process.
Absolutely.
Correct, and I think that's a big part of the value. Where these companies are going, what is really at the heart of this? I want to know my client, or know your client, to the extent of, do we understand their risk profile, not just in terms of their propensity to claim, but their propensity to fraud and associated fraud around that. And that needs to happen right at the beginning of the process. And I think, again, there, with the data being available, with it being able to be digitized, so we don't need a person running that every time at a very high cost.
100%.
They can do this a lot. They can do it often. They can do it on their current book. The volume at which we can do this is scalable to the extent at whatever the requirements are. The positive story. If there is indeed that a death occurred within their current client base, they want to call them proactively and say, you know what, you maybe didn't know this, but your father had a policy, because again, within context, we understand that it's not appropriate for you to speak about death and insurance policies, but we want to let you know that your grandfather, your mother left something for you, and we want to proactively pay that out.
Imagine what a brilliant experience.
Brilliant experience. And for that brand, to in that person's mind, I got a call, really, from this company saying they want to give me money. It's a brilliant experience. So for that person, the value is direct. For that company, the way that brand is now perceived in their eyes and the way that they tell their friends, do you know what this company just did for me? It's an amazing value proposition.
Standard out-of-the-box solutions don't work for most organizations.
Correct.
They have some flavor that they want to introduce. And I think the exciting thing that we agree about in the solution that we bring to the table is the customization comes from their experts, their people sitting within the business. They can tailor those decisions absolutely to the best claims or the best assessors or the best underwriters that they have within their business. They're not taking a generic underwriting or claims decision. They are taking John or Samantha, who sit in that department, who've got 25 years of experience, and they're just giving them more access to data, and they are using their experience and their sort of expertise in understanding what they've seen coming across their desks to make a real-time decision.
Correct.
And that's the power of technology. I mean, bring technology, bring the data, and just use it in an intelligent way. And I think that's why we get excited about the solution.
Now, there we still see quite a bit of a gap, because even when the data, which is of high integrity and validated, lands within the business, there's still a gap in terms of what they then do with that data. So what does this mean? Can I pay? Do I not pay? Can I go forward in taking the next step in this claim? And I think that is where the partnership comes in, to start making sense of this data that is now presented. in two ways. Firstly, to be able to say, I understand this data and the decision-making part of that, and secondly, the efficiency thereof. We don't want to be adding load onto that claims agent to now be going through multiple systems and complexity. We want to ease their process through, especially as we walk this road to straight-through processing. There's still quite a high augmentation of the individual human sitting with data and systems assisting them to go through. And I think that's the important one. And we really believe in that, definitely as a transition as we walk this road into a straight-through processing AI type of world. We're now getting into the space saying, let's provide this person with really good data that's validated and a decision whether and what next step to take. And I think when that data lands, we need that to go into some sort of processing, decision-making automation, and that's where the partnership starts adding value.
Yeah. You need to be able to take the richness of that data and you need to be able to overlay it using technology to make the process easier. This claim solution we're taking to market is really a solution that is pre-configured, it's pre-integrated, we've integrated ourselves together. It's easy to consume, but it's also easy to customize. We put that solution down with an insurance company, and we focus on specific products or specific claim types initially, so that we can very quickly, and this is in a matter of weeks, start demonstrating value that the solution brings. It's very quick and easy to be able to say to a client, if we're putting something down for you, you are very quickly going to stop paying out claims you shouldn't pay, and you're going to need less people to do it. You can repurpose those people to do something else. I'd like to hone in on the decision itself. I mean, a decision can be made up of multiple sort of different parameters. People are looking at the data, they're looking at business rules, they are looking at the judgment or the bias that the individual human has when they apply that their mind to that yes-no decision or yes-no maybe decision that they have to make. What makes our solution special is we are using a fairly niche form of artificial intelligence which virtualizes human expertise. So we take the best people in that insurance company. We virtualize that one decision that they're making around the claim. It may be very complex, it may have many different algorithms under it, but we're not looking at it from a data perspective to start with. We're looking at it from the human perspective. So it makes it quite special. We are creating a human decision in a virtual world, and then we're bringing the richness of the data to it, so that that virtual decision has all the data that's disposable to be able to make the right decision. And I think that's really a big selling point in this solution.
We've also seen where a lot of the claims would just be paid because it's the claim amount is not worth the investigation or effort by the company. Now it's an algorithm. That algorithm runs and it doesn't care how high that amount is, it can still generate an intelligent decision based off of a wide variety of validated data.
Yeah, 100%. The reception has generally been extremely positive.
Correct.
But I think everybody that has been presented with a solution that we're taking to market has received it very warmly. In fact, they've been very excited about the solution.
When we started taking this down to the rands and cents and how they accept this, what we're trying to really show them is if we're looking at 5 claims a month that we were able to mitigate the risk, your system is paying for itself.
Yeah.
And I think we've been able through the analytics show that we can do in an order of magnitude more than that. And that for me is a brilliant way in how we go to market with this, and there is acceptance and effectively the adoption of the service into their processing and processes. So with that very low barrier to entry, with being able to implement that, I think it's easier for them to say, great, this is the way to go. We're not going in with an implementation time of years, with massive analytics, with infrastructure on their side. In fact, there's no requirement for infrastructure. We show the cybersecurity resilience, and that level gives them the confidence to say, but we don't even need to unlock internal resources. So that go-to-market, their reaction to our solution, I think really is spot on.
Yeah.
And when we can relate that back to what they're selling, in effect a claim or that insurance product, and we say, listen, this is how low it is. This is what we need to mitigate for you to have been paid this solution back and more. That's definitely easy conversation to take back to finance.
This gives the client more control over that process because they're getting real-time insight, they're getting a view that sort of runs across the timeline, where you talked about running these sort of risk views on their book on a monthly basis. Ultimately, we'd like them to have a daily view on what the risk profile of their book looks like from many different perspectives. Maybe we're not quite there yet, but I mean, I think that's the
That's
end
where we're
goal.
aiming.
Everything becomes real time. Everything is informed by appropriate data sources, curated in the right way, with the proper security in place, that you become more confident about the risk that you're taking on, and you become more concerned about the experience and the products that you're putting out there to make sure that the mechanism of taking those products to market and servicing those customers is more important than managing the risk, because the risk is then taken care of.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's the exciting stuff for me.